Welcome back to your hour. I'm really excited about this segment. My guest is Katrina Stockton, and she is the proprietor of the uh, historic
Sewing History Museum.
sewing history museum. Okay,
Yes.
and you're having a grand opening tomorrow.
Yes, we are. We're having a grand opening from 1 to 5 with a ribbon cutting at 2 o'clock. Um, and as a special for the opening, we are not charging anything for people to come see us.
Nice.
And not everything is out yet, but um, you have to start sometime, so we're going
Yeah.
for it right now.
Very cool. And the address?
Is 1230 North Waco.
Okay.
Just a little ways down the street from
Yeah,
me.
it's not far from here at all.
No.
So is this an example of something people would see at the?
Yes, this is the smallest Singer sewing machine, or the smallest sewing machine that I have in the museum. And it's from around 1900.
And it's functional.
It's very functional.
Yeah.
It used to be either a children's toy sewing machine that actually works, or it was a demonstrator for the salesman.
Ah, okay.
So,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah.
It's really cool looking. I love that.
It's different, yes.
So, what inspired you to get into sewing history?
Well, I have had the alteration shop for 50 years, and I retired from that. And during COVID and this past year, I have bought around 450 machines,
Oh, wow.
sewing machines, but I want to have somewhere around 1,200 or so. Um, as a thank you to Wichita, because of all the support for having the alteration shop for 50 years, I wanted to do something for the community other than having volunteered before COVID. And
Yeah.
since I couldn't do that anymore, I just kind of decided this was something that was going to be the first in Wichita, first in the state of Kansas, and maybe even the first in the United States.
Wow.
There are lots and lots of sewing history museums in Europe, but there
Nothing
really
here.
isn't anything here.
Well, and it's kind of interesting now. I to sew, but my mother and my grandmother both sewed, and my between the two of them, I had lots and lots of new clothes. I didn't have any sisters. I was the only girl in the family. So my brothers wore my I had three brothers, and they wore a lot of hand-me-downs, which was fine,
Mm-hmm.
but there was nobody to hand down to me, so my mother and my grandmother kept me in lots and lots of new clothes.
Oh boy.
And I loved it. I felt really special because I had my own tailors.
Right.
And it was interesting that at school, some of the kids, some of the girls in particular, were embarrassed that they were wearing something that was homemade. And I thought, are you nuts? If somebody loves you enough to sew for you, because
Right.
I just thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my grandmother even went sew clothes to match my clothes so that I'd have my dolls in matching clothes, and I thought that was
That's when I started sewing by hand, was
Yeah.
when I was making
Doll-
doll clothes
yeah.
and Barbie clothes.
Mhm.
And then my mother got a new sewing machine, and I couldn't use it because it was this new Singer.
Uh-huh.
And my dad owned a sewing machine, Slowmore Sewing Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. So he brought me home a used machine,
Uh-huh.
and I started sewing with it when I was in around third grade.
Wow.
And
Cool.
I've always dreamt of having a alteration business.
Mhm.
It was the first one in Wichita to do men's and women's clothing and tailoring and custom sewing. And I always had hands-on just about everything
Yeah.
that was done, just to make sure that it was 2 locations for a while, and I had all the employees that I would just want to make sure everything was perfect.
Yeah.
So, but that was a dream, and museum was a dream, something to share and enrich the children, so that they will have a desire to carry on with doing sewing and creating things and being designers, and because anything's possible.
Well, Katrina, it was such a pleasure meeting you today, and I'm going to try to make it to your open house
Wonderful.
tomorrow. 'Cause I think it's
Thank you.
very interesting, and it was very interesting meeting you.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we'll be back in just a couple minutes with Deborah Lee from At the Market.